WND Live, the brink of civil war. Kamala Harris doubles down on her far-left extremism by choosing Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota as her running mate. Now, whether she chose him or not is beside the point. The fact is that the governor of Minnesota is the man who presided over the Summer of Love, the 2020 riots. He's got an enormous leftist track record, and we're going to dive into that today. That is the breaking news this morning. We're also going to get into the signs of civil war. We have the clip from John Voight, and then we'll discuss more about Kamala's flip-flopping as well. But here's our first story here. As you can see over at WND, Tim Walz will unleash hell on earth. Even worse than Kamala. So let's bring in the panel as always. Elizabeth, Joe, Josh, good to see you. We also want to welcome Pastor Andrew Isker from Minnesota, because he is our man of the hour right now, because he is an expert. This is a longtime Minnesotan. Andrew, I want to go to you first here on, tell the world, you live in Minnesota. You've lived under this governor, especially during COVID. What has life been like for you under the governor?
Oh, Tim Walz has been an absolute disaster in our state. It is very difficult to overstate just how bad Tim Walz is. Especially, I tend to say he is the most far left and worst governor in the entire country, especially when you consider what he was handed when he came into office and what he's done to our state since. I mean, a lot of people will say, oh, Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or others. Those states were already pretty bad. Minnesota wasn't that bad in 2018 when he became governor. And now it's just as bad as California or Illinois or anywhere else. So he has presided over the greatest decline in our state in my lifetime and probably its history. He's terrible.
You really hit on a good point there, because I think in most people's eyes, maybe there were pockets like the big cities of Minnesota that were blue and radical and such. But to see the entire state all of a sudden, especially when Roe v. Wade was given back to the states, right? Abortion was given back to the states. They went full force with abortion, infanticide. I mean, socially speaking, what happened? What really happened there? I mean, this is salt of the earth people in Minnesota.
Yeah, in 2022, in the midterm elections, the Minnesota GOP lost the state Senate, and they had held that for a very long time. And that was kind of the impediment for Walz and the Democrats in the state to be able to do whatever they want. And so once they had all three houses, the very first bill that they had, right, listed as bill number 1, was to allow abortion up to the point of birth, for any reason, for minors, without parental consent, like zero restrictions whatsoever on abortion, to make it the most far left state in the country on abortion, even to make it a refugee state for people from across the border to come to our state to kill their babies. That was their number one priority in that legislative session. And they got it passed, totally along party lines. And since then, I mean, some of the stories have come out how every year since then, there have been, 8 or 9 babies that have been born in botched abortions that they let die. Just the most horrific thing that you can imagine. I mean, the things that they put, Kermit Gosnell in prison for in Philadelphia are now happening at a regular rate in the state of Minnesota. It's just absolutely horrific. The other thing that they passed in the state was the most expansive, trans rights bills, including, if parents oppose their child's transition, the CPS will come and take them out of their parents' custody.
Right.
So it is, I'm leaving the state of Minnesota, and for that reason, right? I have 6 children. I don't want to go to the doctor's office one day and the doctor asked one of my kids the question, hey, do you feel like a girl today? and then boom, CPS gets called and they can take my kids. Like that's insane to live in a place like that.
It's scary. It's scary as a parent. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's show some of the footage or let's show some of these pictures from the summer of 2020. And Elizabeth, as we don't live in Minnesota, right? So when we saw these pictures splashed across our screens and our Twitter feeds and Facebook or whatever, and this was going on in the heart of the country. I mean, Minnesota is one of the the heart of the country. I mean, walk us through your remembrance of what we saw and what was going on in Minnesota at this time, Elizabeth.
I would say it's about heartbreak. It's there's fear for your country, not a fearfulness like a weakness, but fear for your country, because when you see a state like Minnesota, and I've never been to Minnesota, but it's not California, it's not Massachusetts, it's Minnesota, and this is happening, and you could tell that the authorities were allowing it to happen, and in some sense, when you allow that kind of anarchy and destruction, devastation, there must be there must be a spirit of approval there. There must be a desire to have that that consequence. Because I know this, you four gentlemen on this show and myself, if I were governor of that state, it would have been shut down so fast. I would have done anything possible within my power to do that. And so I was sickened, I was brokenhearted and fearful for my country and angry.
Yeah. So Andrew, being there, you said you have 6 children. I commend you for that. Do you have 4? You're sitting there during 2020. You see these images across. Maybe it was happening in your town. I know you lived outside the Twin Cities there, but did you feel safe? Did you think that this guy who served in the National Guard, apparently he went to war, but maybe didn't. We can get into that as well. But did you feel safe knowing that this stuff was just being allowed? I mean, what happened?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing that I felt more than anything else was, anger over what was happening. Where I lived, I mean, I'm an hour away from the Twin Cities, and we felt fairly safe. But when you see, thousands of people rush the 3rd precinct and burn it down without any opposition whatsoever, you think, all right, my town of 9,000 people, right, can't stand up to that if they decided they wanted to come down here, and there's no National Guard, nobody stopping them. So there was some terror that you felt in that way. But my town is part of outstate Minnesota, which despises Tim Walz. It is, it's like Trump country. Even right now, I drive around my town and there are Trump signs everywhere. There isn't a single Harris sign. But if I drove an hour north to the Twin Cities, they would be everywhere. And so that's part of it, is the people in the outstate are hated by Tim Walz. He had a famous quote about the outstaters saying, "Oh, outstate Minnesota is just rocks and cows," right? Basically, he doesn't care about us at all. Right. And so watching that happen, though, at the same time, right, we forget this, but everyone is locked in their homes by Tim Walz, not allowed to go outside except to buy groceries and follow the little, lines in the grocery store and wear masks and things like that. He had set up a snitch line for people, opening their businesses.
Yes.
He put a friend of mine in prison for 90 days for opening her coffee shop. And all while that's going on, like, normal people are being punished, right, brutally by the Walz regime. Meanwhile, criminals are just set free to burn and loot and destroy the city.
Yeah, well, we have a clip here. We have a clip here from J.D. Vance, who says that these folks, Kamala and Walz here, make an interesting tag team. Let's watch this clip.
And has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does. I think it's interesting, actually. They make an interesting tag team because, of course, Tim Walz allowed rioters to burn down Minneapolis in the summer of 2020, and then the few who got caught, Kamala Harris helped bail them out of jail. So it is more instructive for what it says about Kamala Harris, that she doesn't care about the border, she doesn't care about crime, she doesn't care about American energy, and most importantly, she doesn't care about the Americans who have been made to suffer under those policies.
Woo, that was scathing, Josh. I mean, right? He just threw down the gauntlet there.
I think the most alarming thing to me is they are picking people, like everyone was scared of Gavin Newsom, right? Because what he represents, his vision for the country. And no one really, I mean, I wasn't thinking about Walz, but he has a vision for the country just like he does for his state. And it's dystopian. I'm going to use Andrew's word here. Dystopian and terrifying. Globo homo, would you say? Maybe a little bit. I mean, it's terrifying if the country looked like that. And I think that's what they want. They want the vision of the country to look like what Minneapolis looked like in 2020, especially if Trump looks like he's going to win.
Yeah, and I think Joe, I mean, again, looking at it from an outside perspective, Josh just mentioned Gavin Newsom was highly touted as probably being somebody that would be the top of the ticket or maybe second on the ticket. But Newsom's policies in California somewhat mirror Walz, but they're two entirely different people. I mean, one couldn't be one's an elitist, Napa Valley wine drinker, and the other is a hunter and whatever. So their ideologies appear to be the same, and one may be worse than the other. Do we know yet at this point?
I don't know which one is worse, but they're both ending up in destruction. I mean, with Gavin Newsom, you have poop in the streets there in California, and it's perfectly fine with everybody. And with Walz, you have everything on fire. So, I was just thinking on the parable level, because, Jesus only speaks in parables, but the guy's name is Walz. And when you hear that with your ear, the name Walz, it implies captivity. And like what we had with the lockdowns in, as you mentioned earlier, these people and the devil are all about captivity, keeping people not free. And God is, of course, about freedom. So I think this whole thing about Tim Walz being picked is a God thing where he is lining up freedom versus captivity for the presidential race, and he's giving us the choice. Are you going to choose destruction and captivity, or are you going to choose freedom and prosperity on the other side? So that's what's going on here. It is a fail by the Democrats, because they would have gotten much more, I think, political value out of picking Josh Shapiro. But I think God is prompting this move.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I'll let you go, but we want to play another clip too. But go ahead.
I have a question. Well, a couple things. Firstly, I agree with Joe. I think we all here, being like-minded in our faith, see the hand of God in every bizarre choice made, words spoken, such as that Raskin quote just recently. And the fact that she chose Walz. Were you surprised that she chose Walz? Because I was hoping that she would put Walz in there. And I'm just wondering, Andrew, were you shocked? Because isn't this the most stupid thing, therefore God? I mean, I'm assuming God had something to do with that stupidity.
No, I actually wasn't surprised that Walz was the pick. Right after the Biden-Trump debate, and immediately after the debate ended, everyone, including the mainstream media, is talking about, what are we going to do? We got to get rid of this guy. Who's going to be the replacement? I threw out there online, well, my governor, he's a dark horse for this. And he had been, even before that, had been making the rounds in the mainstream media, the Sunday morning talk shows, things like that, to talk up how he, passed a bill to give free lunches to kids or something like that, doing a media tour about that. That caught my attention. Like, I wonder, there's something going on here a little bit. So some of this has been in the works for a while, especially if you get, if you really, drill down deep, like, why did they have the debate so early, right? That maybe there's some kind of plan to dump Biden. And so I think he was in the offing for a while. He was always a major Obama guy. I mean, a very loyal soldier of Obama in Congress. I remember when he was my congressman in the 1st district of Minnesota. And I remember when he pushed Obamacare, right? He went to the Mankato East Auditorium to have a town hall where like 2,000 people showed up. They bust in hundreds of union people from the Twin Cities to make it look like somebody was actually in support of Obamacare. But everybody there was furious about it. And he goes there and he just lies through his teeth saying nobody's premiums are going to go up. He brings the Blue Cross Blue Shield CEO of Minnesota to come tell us, our premiums are going to be fine. He just lies, right? He has always been part of their agenda from the very beginning, very loyal, and he's been rewarded, right? What he did in 2020, right? He's being rewarded for those things. It isn't just random. that this guy that was at the center of all of this is now being brought to the forefront, right?
Do you
They
think
love him.
that I thought that maybe he was chosen also because Kamala doesn't want a charismatic man like some of the other candidates that might show her up. And I thought, maybe she chose also for just self-interest as well. But then I don't think she would also want a centrist or any centrist. So she has to pick a communist because she doesn't want to fight within her own. She doesn't want to fight a moderate. Let's put it that way. She wants to go full bore if she won the White House.
Well, let's say we have this image here of the hat, the newest hat that is going to sweep the nation. It's the Harris Walz hunter cap. This is clearly. They clearly are trying to appease or appeal to the hunters, the average Joe, and I think you're right. With her not picking of the more charismatic person, I think that's the key here to balance out the imagery. But make no mistake about it. Let's look at this clip. Clip number 4. This is Walz on socialism.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Andrew, is that what you guys are like down there? Is that how your neighbors are? Just take from each other all the time?
Not where I'm from, but in the Twin Cities, maybe. It is something that Walz has pushed. He is, like you were saying earlier, right? He's this fictional, right, like hunter, right? This outdoorsy Midwestern guy, but it's all fake, right? He's not. It's like the. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Yellowstone meme that goes around online. Kevin Costner sitting in the back of the truck. I think Ross Douthat from the New York Times tweeted that out yesterday. But that's Tim Walz. He is this fake normal guy, right? This fake Midwestern folksy guy. He is
folksy fake.
Yeah, it's not real. Right? He has always been. There are stories about how since he was a little kid, he loved communist China. He went and taught in communist China, and thinks Mao Zedong is so great. Isn't it so wonderful and beautiful?
There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot coming out. The convention is next week, I believe. So there's going to be a lot of focus on this from folks on the right.
Don't you
folks,
think?
Make sure you stay with WND. Make sure you follow this because you're not going to get this kind of coverage in the mainstream media. You're only going to get it at WND as we continue to expose this.
I want to say something about neighborliness.
Sure.
Because I was so repulsed by that comment and loving it because thank you very much. But one man's socialism, this is the sort of meme that we get with, or trope or whatever, with the Middle East, with Hamas. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right? Or resistance fighter. And this idea that socialism is just really neighborliness by another name or by those who are really neighborly, people who have that neighborliness seem socialist. But to me, I don't know if I'm seeing something into it, but, the greatest command for Jews and Christians in the Torah and in the Gospels is to love thy neighbor as thyself. That would be really true neighborliness. And it almost seems as if he's trying to evoke that kind of terminology. But I can tell you that in my humble opinion, socialism is not what Jesus was talking about. To be neighborly and to love your neighbor and to treat him well like you would want him to treat you in Leviticus chapter 19 in the Gospels has nothing to do with socialism. And I happen to believe that our Lord would not be a socialist if he was talking to us right now. Anyway,
very, very
that's
true.
my pitch on neighborliness and
Yes.
socialism.
Well, Pastor, we don't want to let you go without hearing about you. You got a book out. You're also, a writer and an author here. The Boniface Option. Can you share just a little bit about this book? And I'm sure people can buy it on Amazon, but if there's other places that are better, let us know.
Yeah, the easiest place definitely is Amazon, but it's a book about. Right, I take the story of Saint Boniface, who is the Christian missionary in the 8th century who went to Germania, and the story is that he went and chopped down Thor's oak. Right, he takes the first swing, and then the tree blows over, and they believe that anybody who touched that tree will get struck by lightning and killed. And he takes one swing, and the tree falls over, and everyone there was converted, repented, believed, and was baptized that day. All the hundreds of people that came to watch. And so from that story, I look at it, and it's kind of a play on Roger Rear's Benedict option, where that one is about withdrawing, which isn't bad. It's what I'm doing. I'm leaving Minnesota. I want to get out of Minnesota entirely, away from what Tim Walz has done and destroyed my state. But then from there, what do? You have to go out and fight the evil. You have to do political and cultural battle, right? Spiritual battle against these evil things. You have to do that same kind of thing. It's chopping down idols, right? In this spiritual and metaphorical and sometimes even physical sense. And so it's about that. It's especially about what has happened to our culture over the last 100 years. What we had 100 years ago in America has been destroyed. It's been purposefully destroyed. That so often we talk about the potential of a dystopia, of a one world government or things like that, which is a terrifying thing. What the World Economic Forum is doing, or Klaus Schwab, or Bill Gates, people like that. But the reality, and that again, that's horrifying. But the reality is, if you went back 100 years ago and told them about the world we currently have right now at this moment, to tell your great-great-grandfather the way it's going to be, they would say you're already living in that dystopia where you have these social control. If you describe the 2020 lockdowns to them, they would think, what happened to our country? Where did it all go wrong? If you describe how in my state, Tim Walz is saying that we're going to take your kids away and cut off their genitals, They would be horrified. They would think we lost a major war and that we're occupied by some foreign evil government. And so the point of the book is to show, things are actually much worse than you think they are. But at the same time, once you realize that, once you understand that, here are ways that you can fight within your own personal life, within your own community, within your own churches. Here's how we can fight and make the world that we've lost make it better and get back to where we once were as a country.
Fantastic. Wow. All right. Well, everybody, please, bookmark
Matt,
that.
I know you want to move to, I know I'm interrupting, and that's just so rude. But before we move on to the next segment, there were two questions. I'm going to throw them out. And if you think that we should just do a follow-up interview, or I'll do a one-on-one interview with Andrew, I am utterly fascinated and horrified at the same time that you say Minnesota in 2018 was not that bad, and that this is the greatest decline of Minnesota and maybe, I don't know, of other states in such a truncated, short period of time. And I do not understand how that happens so quickly, how Minnesota became this kind of a leftism on steroids, and just everything, every individual social reform, if you want to call it, and legal reform, especially with parents. How can that happen? How were the seeds how was the ground fertilized? How was the seeds? How were they planted? What were those seeds? I don't know how you go from A to Z that quickly. And then the second question is, do you identify with Elon Musk's decision to move everything? He's closing San Francisco office down entirely. He's moving his whole company over. He's moving out personally because of the LGBTQ trans legislation that was passed in California, where parents are left out of the conversation and potentially made criminals. He left. You're leaving Minnesota, and are other Minnesotans leaving because of Walz and his war on liberty in Minnesota?
I think to answer both your questions, the first one, Minnesota became so bad so quickly. I think they've laid the groundwork for it over many years. In 2014, the first iteration BLM, there were tons of NGOs and Soros organizations that were operating in Minnesota. They've been planning these things for a while. All the community organizing, we joke about Barack Obama, and that was his job before being president. That actually, it's a real job. They really do stuff, and then we can see what they do in 2020. They did it here, and all of that laid the groundwork for them to overturn our entire
It's the groundwork.
State. Yeah, the same thing with the fortification of elections. The same kind of work there. They pour tons of money into local state races, into prosecutor races, things like that. And very quickly they can overturn the entire culture, just from the top down. That's what's happened. It's this top down change that has transformed our state very, very, very quickly. And as far as your second question, yeah, there are. I made my announcement online that I'm leaving Minnesota, that I'm moving to Tennessee. I'm part of a group called Ridge Runner and New Founding, where we're trying to build new towns and new towns that appeal to people like us, people like your viewers, where we want to have the America that we have lost. And it takes like-minded people gathering together and building those things to do that. And when you're able to collect people, this is kind of happening all over the country. You mentioned Musk, People are leaving these far left states, these far left places, to go to places that are more aligned with their values and what they believe. And when you consolidate that power, just in terms of people voting with your feet, then you can produce positive things rather than just fleeing and getting out. You go to a place to make it better with other people that want to make it better. And I think that is going to continue. It kind of dovetails into your, I know your next segment that you guys are doing, It dovetails into that, where people are leaving far left states and consolidating power in more, more conservative states like Texas and Florida and Tennessee, where I'm going. And I think that is going to hasten even more, regardless of the outcome of the election, especially if Kamala and Walz win, People are going to want to flee these places where they allow a narco tyranny, Where they allow criminals to run wild, whereas they will put business owners in jail, That is the vision of the future for the country that they want. And so you want to be in a place where your local police, your local government, is on your side, That's what you want.
And that you said it there, Andrew, that dovetails nicely into this discussion that John Voight brought to the table, that we are on the brink of civil war. And we have a little bit of what John Voight released on his latest video here. Let's take a look at that.
This is the war of our lifetime now. We the people are in trouble if this nation picks Kamala Harris. We must stop this crime that is happening. It's a war crime that Obama is directing, and Kamala Harris will be the cackling hyena that just listens and repeats. And the freedom we all once had will be burned in the dark plague of the darkest time in history, like the destruction of the Civil War.
Yeah. Joe, you've been listening and partaking in this discussion here. What do you think of John Voight's words here? I mean, he's an actor, so he's able to deliver it with such eloquence and the seriousness of his statement. But are we really that close?
Well, just to clarify, he didn't say that if the Democrats win, there's going to be a civil war. But he said the destruction is going to be akin to what was taking place or took place during the Civil War back in the 1860s, where the country was just so divided and completely in a very dark place. And that's exactly what would happen. And John Voight, was not always this spiritual man that he has come to be in recent years. Actually, a couple of years ago, he was on Tucker Carlson's show, when he was on the Fox News channel, and he opened up about a time in his life that changed him. his career was in a bad place. He had troubles with that. He had relationship problems with his daughter, Angelina Jolie. And he was in this bungalow in California, lying on the floor. Nobody's in the house, and he's crying out, "Why is it so difficult? Why is it so tough?" And even though nobody was in the house, he heard this loud, audible voice saying, "It's supposed to be difficult." He actually heard this voice out of nowhere saying that. So that changed him and brought him to this place where he can see now the clarity of good versus evil and the results of what you get with leftist policies. You know, the left is called left for a reason. It's because they've left God, and they haven't returned. And the right is right because we're right with God. And it's as simple as that. Again, everything is a parable. Everything is a metaphor. God says so himself in the Bible. So we always have to have our ears and eyes open to what is truly going on. This is a good versus evil conflict. It started way back, in the Garden of Eden with the deception of the devil. So it's been ongoing for a long time. And now it's coming to a head where the actual safety and future of America is in doubt.
Yeah. Joe, or Pastor Andrew, God, I suppose that was God saying it's supposed to be hard. Is that where we're headed? I mean, we're supposed to be going through this to get to the light, right? Is that the message here?
Yeah, I mean, there's one of my favorite quotes is from the reformer John Calvin, and he quotes he says in the Institutes of the Christian Religion from 500 years ago, when God wants to judge a people, he gives them wicked leaders. And I think that's what we've been going through for a while. He is refining us to cause us to repent, to cause us to turn us. I mean, this happens so often in Scripture. I mean, you see, especially like I preached recently in the last few years through the book of Judges, and you see this, right? The people worship false gods, and things get bad for them, and then finally they call on the name of the Lord, and He sends a judge to save them. And I think that's what has happened and is happening in our country. Is things are bad, and He wants us to repent. He wants us to turn to Him. He wants all of us to turn to Him, and when we do, then He'll do the same thing that He does consistently throughout the Scriptures. He sends someone to help us to make things right. And so that's what I pray for. That's what I want. And I want the country to turn to the Lord Jesus and for us to survive, right? For there to be a future for my children and for my grandchildren, right? That's what I want.
One of the leaders, Elizabeth, you found this clip of Jamie Raskin, and I know we have it up on WND. One of our leaders here, Joe, you said that John Voight may not be taking us, saying that we're going into civil war, but it certainly sounds like Jamie Raskin is hinting at the idea of it. Do we have the clip of this, or is it just the post? What do we have, Josh?
We have the clip.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's take a look of Jamie Raskin here.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in civil war conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means. And I'm glad that Sherilyn's creating her new center so we can bring that.
That's bone chilling. Josh, right?
That's terrifying.
Yeah. Elizabeth, what's your reaction here?
Well, I literally have listened to this so many times because I couldn't believe it when I saw it and heard it. I just couldn't believe this was coming out of somebody's mouth. And of course, the typical thing is we relate it back to, for instance, when Trump was jokingly saying to Hannity, I'm going to be dictator for a day. Well, I've said those kinds of things all the time. If only I could be dictator for 1 year in America, I would change it all. I really wouldn't want to do that. But the point was that Trump was saying, if I could, I'm going to go in and there's going to be a couple of executive orders or a series that restores, that ends the invasion, et cetera. And they actually then continually charge him or accuse him of declaring that he was going to become a dictator and that there won't ever be elections again, that kind of thing. Here, Jamie Raskin is literally saying out loud without blushing that on January 6th
January 6th.
Yeah, January 6th, that they would have the unfortunate task of informing these rampaging MAGA Trump supporters, we're all insane. And of course, we'd be rampaging because they don't rampage, i.e. Minnesota. And that he would have to inform us. And then, of course, they would need, to call out the National Guard and have, 5 times, 5x Secret Service coverage and all this. And the problem is that the Supreme Court, not all of them, but the Supreme Court doesn't understand their job or the 14th Amendment. There is so much in there. This could be a 20 article series.
And this comes from this is the Democrat senator from Maryland who, Josh, if correct me if I'm wrong, he was one of the chief people impeaching Trump when he was in office those 2 times. So
in the House, he's the impeachment manager in the U.S. House from Maryland who controlled the case. Yeah.
So he clearly had. I mean, he's chief general number 1 of keeping Trump out of the White House. I mean, Josh, this is.
Matt, I like to say, you know about the Alex Jones jar? You put $1 in every time Alex Jones is right. Alex was talking about this a few months back, but basically, if anybody, you can kind of see the playbook that's laid out in the next coming months, right? So, well, I mean, no one knew that officially that Biden was going to be taken out. He's out of the way now. Oops, we almost assassinated Trump. But next is the election, and there has to be a lot of confusion around the election. And then the election is not certified officially until January 6th, that we all know what January 6th has been made to look like. And again, Raskin here, he's creating this image that, there's going to be Trump hordes at January 6th again. But I would posit that there will not be. There will be leftist woke maniacs there. And my prediction is that they will be surrounding the Supreme Court, putting pressure, and the media will do their natural thing and they'll gaslight everyone and they'll say, we can't certify Trump because it's the end of the country.
Right.
And really, as the media does and they project, it's the opposite is true. And so there's like this window of time from the election to January 6th. There's just no way we're going to actually know the election results. And that's just my prediction as a doomer. That's my job here on the show, is to stay doomerish.
Well, perhaps, Josh, but over in the UK, we have footage or we have some clips of the rioting that's been going on over the UK. And I had to question you guys earlier this morning. I was like, who's the ones doing the rioting and what is it for? And apparently these are the British people that are fed up with the migration policies of their government that have finally started to protest in the streets and cause some damage. So if things are, if Europe is sort of the canary in the coal mine for the U.S., then, maybe we do start to see, maybe this is the final straw for patriots, if you will. I mean, I'm not, again, as a doomer, as taking
that's
on a
my
doomer
role,
tone.
man.
Yeah, I know. Perhaps that's where we're headed. But Elon Musk said this. Do we have that clip or a screenshot of Elon Musk saying this on X? Image 7, I believe, if we still have it loaded up. Yeah, here it is here. What the F is going on in the UK, total madness, and Elon Musk saying civil war is inevitable. Andrew,
play
what do we
that
do?
clip?
You're
Is that
still
a
with
clip?
us. Our pastor is still with us. So I want to go over to the pastor. What can we do?
Well, yeah, I see that. That's often people say, "Oh, civil war is going to happen." The difficult thing, maybe this is a doomer point, or maybe this is an optimistic one. You could take it whichever way you want. But I mean, you look at like the American Civil War. You basically had two separate countries or two separate cultures. And their own governments, right? That when states seceded, they had governments. They have all, standing armies that were able to be put into the field for battle, right? The right doesn't have anything like that. Like a state is not going to secede if Kamala Harris becomes president, and like Texas and Florida aren't going to say, all right, we're done with this now. That I don't think we're at a place where it'd be something like that. Especially because you need a counter elite. Right, you need people at the top. Like maybe you have Elon Musk, maybe you have people like that will be the leaders on another side. I think it'll be much more decentralized, right? It will be much more much more like what is going on in England right now. I mean, I mentioned that word earlier, anarcho tyranny. I mean, you look at that. If you write on Facebook in Great Britain that, hey, I don't think we should have millions of Pakistanis imported to our country, they'll put you in prison for months. But if you commit multiple rapes and you're a migrant to the UK, they'll put you on probation, right? That is criminalizing normal people versus letting criminals do whatever they want. Like that's
Pastor.
that's
We have that clip here of the UK police arresting somebody for a Facebook post. So clip, let's look at clip 9A here.
So I'm actually being arrested.
You're going to be arrested, okay?
Right.
Take you back to the police station.
Right.
Ask you, okay, this is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page. Okay?
Oh, really? Oh, it's a Facebook crime, is it?
Okay.
Right. I mean, you said I was going to be arrested under some what information? But I'm going to be arrested for posting on Facebook.
Made some comments that are offensive, obscene, and people have made a complaint about that, and it's
and can you tell me what this comment was?
Okay, well we'll do that when we interview.
All right, and so what am I?
So this isn't like this was a death threat against the king or anything, right? Like this isn't like
that would nothing would happen with that.
Well, yeah, right. But this isn't like the Secret Service showing up when someone makes an assassination claim. This sounds to me just you made offensive remarks on Facebook. And,
Matt, this is not new. They've been putting people in the UK in prison for years. After October 7th, which is obviously not years ago, but a man made a comment or uploaded a video to, I don't know if it was X or wherever, YouTube, and he was making a comment that there was somebody on the street, a foreigner, ripping down a British flag and putting up a Palestinian flag. And he thought there was a problem with that. So they came to his door and arrested him. This has been going on for years. And to Andrew's point, I've never believed that there would actually, be, we had the North and the South. Where would we have the front lines of a civil war? So we don't have the geography and the warring factions on two sides of a line to be able to actually fight. I think it's going to be dispersed all over the country. I think it's going to devolve to the point where, just like the UK, that violent mobs, whether they be illegal immigrants, whether they be Islamofascists, whether they be BLM, Antifa, all of those fascists, whatever it is, they'll be just fighting and it'll be demoralizing. Americans will go to prison, illegals will stay out, and justice will not ever be done. And this is a demoralization war, just crush us to the point where we give up, in a sense.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what they're trying to do, and I think what we know to be true, and maybe we should be going and reading Pastor's book here, is that we should not give up. We have to reorganize. Get your family safe. Start from a point. of the Bible and really dig deep there and push back against these dark forces. So very good. Okay, well, folks, it has been this has been a packed show. We've got a lot here. We got a lot we're going to push over to the Friday show to keep discussing but we want to make sure that we know where we can follow Pastor Andrew on X and anywhere else. Pastor, where can people find you on X here? I think we got your
right there on the screen, at Boniface Option. That's my handle there on Twitter and really across all social media platforms. I'm on Gab. I also have a YouTube show that I do. Not as big as your guys' show, but called Contramundum that I do with a friend of mine, CJ Engel. And so we record every week as well and discuss all of these things. And we're going to record on Friday, and I'll take a victory lap, I guess. It's not much of a victory, predicting that Walz would be the VP.
Yes.
Not a great victory, not really much to celebrate, but other than my instincts are right. But if you want a little bit of optimism, a little bit of hope, my instincts that were right about that, and were right about Trump in 2016. My instincts say it's going to be close, but I think Trump is going to win. I think he's going to win. People have to show up and go and vote, and we could prevent the U.S. from becoming what we're seeing in the United Kingdom again.
Yeah.
Like, just go vote, go get people that, he won in 2016 because all sorts of people that never voted before showed up and voted because here's somebody who's different. And you need to drive people to the polls, get people going, get them registered, go vote, because we do not want this to happen to our country.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. Well, we want to make sure we tune into that show. You make sure you get yourself over on Rumble too, because what's happening over at Rumble, Josh?
Oh, my favorite thing to say. We really don't like YouTube anymore, and Facebook is okay. But Rumble, WND Newsroom, go there. People are watching there, but they're not hitting the subscribe button. They got to do that. You got to do that, okay, folks? Hit the subscribe button. Hit like if you want. We want you to follow us on Rumble, because that's the one place the jackboot's not just smashed down on our stream. And it's where we can say what we want, and then we don't get copyright strikes or all this garbage that we find on the other platforms. Really enjoyed having Andrew here. Of course, our panel, we love everybody here, and we want Andrew back, right?
Oh, I want some serious talking with Andrew. I want more details. I want to do a deep dive on Walz.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will get that scheduled and let everybody know. So on behalf of Josh, Joe, Andrew, and Elizabeth, I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll be back here on Friday. Thank you, and God bless. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.